Did you have any favorite parts? Like any sections or favorite bits?
Now it was a lot of stuff to think about because
Yeah.
your body is has only some food, and your identity is only some thoughts and some experiences. So when you have to see everything in a completely new way.
Mm-hmm.
So it was okay to do, but yeah, you read it, and then after you have to make it some for yourself. Huh? It takes all the time. It takes some time to
Definitely.
let it land in your body and in your head.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those books that you can like probably reread it. And I know even me, after reading it and then going back and like taking notes on it and then going back and even like refreshing again before like the meetings, every time I go back and like I look at my highlighted stuff, it's like, wow, it's almost like I'm getting that information again. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember that, but like I didn't remember it as if it was like on the top layer. It was kind of like inside somewhere, and you read it again and it's like, oh yeah, okay, I remember that.
Yes, I think every time you read it with a new look, huh? With a new interpretation.
Yeah.
When 1 year later in the time, then you have a lot of more experiences. So you pick up other stuff from the book.
Yeah, always little bits of wisdom and new things that, I mean, they were there all along, but maybe they didn't really they weren't their place. Actually, one of the quotes that I wrote that it probably even pertains to the whole reading itself was about like finding the right time to retain the information. It's like you can read something, but then if it's not the right time for you to get that information, it doesn't really sink in, and then you might read it again and then it's the right time. So that's when it really starts to make sense and kind of come together, and it can become those like aha moments because now you're ready for it.
Yes, but it was really very deep. I'm in the yoga only since 1 year. I do something more, but before it was only the poses, and now there's a lot of more information. So the meditation and all that, it's rather new for me, but very interesting. I start a little bit meditation, and now it's okay.
Yeah. So you started with like the physical practice more?
Yes. In the beginning it was only the physical practice, but now I start a little bit more the religion. I don't know, I like the word, but the idea, the theory behind, and it's the Ashima, the eight limbs,
the philosophy kind of behind it. Yeah.
So nice. A new world, new experiences.
Yeah. And Chrisanne, hi, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, good evening. Good morning for you. Good evening for me.
Yes, it is morning. I barely made it to the meeting. I think I woke up like 15 minutes ago. It's one of those rare days that I slept in. So
I know who does a meeting at 8 a.m. on a Sunday. I'm sorry. I was trying to find a time because 9 o'clock gets a little late for me, so at night anyways. So I was like, oh, try 8 a.m.
Nope, this works. This works.
Yeah. Well, happy Sunday morning.
Yes, thank you. I would say I have to agree with Angie. I came into yoga really more for the physical aspects of it, and then really started yearning for the philosophy behind it. And I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the second half of the book, I think, a little bit more than the first half. What I liked is that he said it was set up so that there was a little bit of theory and philosophy, and then the application. So the little sections on how you could implement what he's talking about with the little meditations or the little activities to watch the water drip, and those things I think were really helpful because it brought it more real for me in that respect. So yeah, I agree. It was definitely it is a book that I would have to read multiple times because it's like the layers of an onion. I get the first part, and then going back, it just gets deeper and deeper the more you go. I enjoyed it. It was a good book.
So is that why you liked the second part better? Was because it was more like experiential, where you were able to like get some information and then try it out?
I think so. I think so. That yeah, the I I agree with the when you're ready to learn, the teacher will be there. And that's really,
Yeah.
in essence, you know, when you're ready to remember, you will. And that I think that just the way that the second half was structured made it easier for me to retain the concepts and to remember. So, yeah.
So what do you think could have been the purpose for structuring it that way? Because I do agree. I think that made it more the second part was kind of more digestible for like everybody, as opposed to maybe people who have done a lot of like reading into yogic philosophy, or like a little further along maybe in a on a spiritual path. I think that the second part was much more digestible. So why have you thought as to why he might have done it like that?
Not until now, but you know, I really think part of that is how all books and all classes are set up, is that they always start with establishing a shared knowledge. And so the first half of the book seemed much more developing the concepts, developing the ideas, so that everybody reading it is on the same page. Much like, you know, when you would take a class and they define words in the beginning, and then the second half is always the application piece. So I think it really is just that format. But you know, this particular month has been exceptionally over the top busy for me. I work in a school district, so that's winding down. My daughter is graduating. We're in the middle of a zillion home projects. And I think the more digestible format of the second half, in spite of all that's going on, made it, it was easier for me to just pick it up and read for 15 minutes and feel like I could read a little bit of philosophy and then apply it and still get all my reading, you know, mostly done. So it was a good juggling balance for me with it structured that way. So yeah.
Well, that's good. Congratulations for your daughter.
Yes, thanks.
What grade is she graduating?
12th grade.
Oh,
high school.
High school.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a fun time.
It is. It is.
Yeah, it's interesting because the way that I think about it, with how it was structured, I read it in I think it was Light on the Yoga Sutras of Potentially by B.K.S. Iyengar, and he spoke about how the Yoga Sutras are structured and how the first book is Samadhipada, and it is more for the like people who are already further along on a path, and then the second part is kind of like, okay, this is how you get there. And it took me at that point I was like asking the question, like, why would they structure it that way if like the first part is kind of not going to be relevant for most people? And then I started doing jujitsu, which this will make sense in a second. So then I started doing jujitsu, and we had a coach who would show us the steps for something, and I could never quite get it until I saw it all come together. And sometimes they would show us the whole thing first, and you think, oh my God, that's so much information, like what are you doing? But it really, for me, helped to see everything all together first, and like see everything as a whole, even if it is a lot of things going on, and then afterwards to kind of look at the steps of how to get there. So that was my kind of maybe thought about that, and maybe that's why they did it, is to, or if this is the reason that they've done it, or if they did it consciously, which presumably they did, that maybe it was because they want to like show the sort of end result or the outcome, or even like talk about what it's like, and then give you the steps for how to get there, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It really is giving that big picture, that shared knowledge, that everybody is on that same page, and then it breaks it down into little pieces.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that like if you look at like if you were to think of reading the second part first, maybe it wouldn't like catch as many people in. Maybe they would start reading it and not really see where it's all going, and find it harder to stick to. Whereas if you've read kind of like the end result and how your life is going to be, and or how you can get to these more aware states, and being less affected by situations that are outside of your control, and all those sorts of things, and then tell you how to get there. Okay, so I had put some, did you guys see in the post just like some things that I had thought of to talk about?
Yes.
Yeah, and did you like that?
I did. I thought that was helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, well, I always like write out notes of things I want to talk about, or like I would be interested in talking about. So maybe I could share them with you guys first. So if you, because I know it can be hard if you're, you've already read it, but you didn't maybe take the same notes as I did. So if you're not sure, then it can give you some kind of advanced warning of what what I'm interested in, and then of course if you have anything you're interested in, more than welcome. So the first one that I took from the body portion of that was when they were talking about, or when he was talking about like self-preservation, this kind of like duality exists within us, the self-preservation aspect. So us, our physical bodies kind of always trying to continue its existence, and protecting us, that automatic protective mechanism that's there against obviously any harm, external harm, that kind of like armor that we wear, the invisible armor that we wear in order to protect ourselves. But at the same time, we desire and crave for expansion, for like going beyond. And so my question is that, I mean, it's hard for me to even kind of think back to before I had this like awareness of my thoughts as not being who I am. But I do remember that it was the case. And so I wonder for you lot, if you can kind of like go back to that time before you were aware that you were not your thoughts, and that that's all a separate part. If you felt that like kind of physical self-preservation aspect as well as if you like, did you also have this desire to expand? Or do you even have that now? Should I ask that again? I feel like that was a very long question. Okay, so maybe it's a two-part question. Okay, so the body's like the physical body's desire to protect itself. Do you notice that in your day-to-day life? Or like, do you feel that from time to time? Like maybe if you become aware of it, do you like feel that? You know,
I
it's
think
kind of like,
that is built into us, no?
yeah, no, exactly. So, but like we don't. I think having an awareness of it is like it's definitely it's our natural part of our being. But the awareness of it, I guess. Do you have that, Michelle?
Do I have the awareness of wanting to self-preserve?
Yeah.
Of self-preservation?
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. I think it's built into us neurologically too.
Mm-hmm.
So that part I feel like is easier to access than the second part of your question, which was the desire for expansion.
Yeah.
Or
so do you feel that as well? Are you like aware of that? Do you notice that?
definitely, definitely I do. And I'm wondering if that's built into us as well, if that's something innate, or if that's. But I understand what you're saying is like, do I have the awareness of that? And I think that takes that cultivation, that practice, kind of the practices that he was speaking of, right? What was the practice for this one? Was it as you fall asleep at night, you think of what you know of yourself?
I think if you remember exactly the practice for it, that is amazing. But it could have been that one.
Do you know which one I'm referencing? It's when he said, "As you fall asleep."
I know exactly. Yeah.
And I think
definitely
paying attention. He said, I could be completely off the mark here, but do I have the awareness of those two things? I feel like it's almost innate, the self-preservation aspect. I feel like we're kind of born with that. Do we have the awareness of that? I feel like I do. I'm curious as to see what everybody else thinks.
Do anybody else? Do you think you have the awareness of those two things?
I think so, yes. I think self-preservation, that indeed is innate, but I think that the expansion, it comes later. I think, yes, experiences, and it's depending on your environment, I think too.
That the expansion part?
Yes, I think so.
Thank you. And yeah?
I think the expansion piece requires a little bit of self-awareness that not everybody has. Not everybody is as intuitive and sensitive to those kind of things. And so, you know, that part I agree with Angie. I think it's some, you know, the self-preservation we have just innately to survive. But then I think the expansion and that growing and developing and changing is something that comes once we start recognizing that we have thoughts and that metacognitive piece. I think that's something that develops with time.
Yeah, that was my experience of it for sure. Even the self-preservation aspect, I don't like. I can remember not realizing that, and I remember, you know, this is decades ago, but I do remember not understanding and kind of feeling like my body was against me, that the physical part was like not able to do the things that I wanted it to do, and not I felt like I was kind of like in a war or a battle with my body, and then later realizing that maybe it was it was doing what it was meant to do and what it was innately meant to do in order to protect itself. So I wonder if there are, I mean, I presume there are many people who are still in that state of not even being aware of that, of either. No, what do you guys think? Like, as a society, do you think that people, as a species, do you think that people are mostly aware of their body's purpose, and like not even talking about life's purpose, but like their body's purpose to serve like them as a being?
I think not consciously. Everybody is having self-preservation. I think when you are hungry, you start to get some food. It's yes, you are aware, but sometimes yes, it's logical. It's a logical reply from the feeling hungry, for example. You go to eat something. It's also self-preservation. It's also not, and then I think, in fact, everybody is aware of it, but not everybody knows that he is aware.
No, I think it's such a big subject. Like when are we starting to be conscious about it? And because it depends so much on people, and everyone has such a different life journey, and also start as at a different point. And I like what Tanya said also, like that many people lost connection to their bodies. And when Angie says, like, when you're hungry, for example, speaking about hunger, people don't even know sometimes anymore to listen to when are they hungry to eat, because it's such a, depending where you live in your culture, is like you eat at this time and you eat this and you have to eat breakfast because this is the culture. And so it's difficult for people sometimes to tune in and to listen to their own body. And so realizing what you were saying, Lisa, that we are not our thoughts, is like sometimes so far away. It's like when you, it's like dropping a bomb sometimes when you say that. So yeah, it's difficult.
So do you think that, yeah, because I completely agree with both both you and Tanya about that, losing the connection to the body. So how many people in society, if you could guess, like what would be the percentage of people do you think actually even have that awareness of being separate from their thoughts, if you were to wager a guess?
Oh wow, like I would say not more than 25%. Like I would be surprised.
Yeah,
That's
I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? 25%? Does that seem? I'm very curious. Tanya says not many. Do you have a number on what you think not many is, Tanya? Awareness and knowledge of this is is just the first step. To really feel it is even more difficult. Yes, agreed. I think 25%. I mean, it is a hard question, but yeah, Tanya says 20%. I think that even those could be being generous. If you think, and it's hard, really feel it 5%, Tanya says. It's, if we look at going back to having no connection with their body, like the amount of people, I feel like in our circles, it gets kind of like, our circles being like, if you're in connection with people who are conscious about their body, like even just being physically active, if you're doing yoga, I feel like you end up being more around people, you know, like that are like that. And so I feel like that can almost even skew the numbers a bit, so that you think that everybody is kind of in those same lines. But if we look at every person, every human on this planet, I feel like the numbers could be scarily low, of people who have that awareness, because so many people just are just trapped in that like hamster wheel, going over and over and over again, thinking, and like they're literally thinking beings instead of living beings. It's very, but yet meditation is becoming more and more popular. So maybe the number could be getting higher, because I definitely feel like meditation is one of the best first steps for people to get that awareness. Yeah, even people who are really sporty or disconnected to their body, definitely. It's interesting because did I write something about that? About what Tanya just said about people who are, you know, if you're physically active, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are connected to your body and you're aware of your body. And I think that that's one of the most important elements to the yoga practice and like the asana practice, is bringing that awareness, or helping people to get that awareness and that connection with their body, so that they can then start to realize that like they have the ability to connect with their bodies, and then to kind of like separate themselves. So it's funny that you like need this connection before you can actually separate from. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You need that connection in order to separate it from. That's at least what I feel about it. And then, yeah, there's so many people who just, they have no idea why their body does the things that it does, but they're able to do these crazy physical feats, and yet they don't even really have that connection. It's really interesting. So I was curious as to if you had any favorite practices, if you tried any of the practices, the sadhanas, and if you had any favorites, and or conversely, if you had any ones that you found challenging or you didn't really like.
Favorite practices? It's depending on the day. Sometimes normally I prefer the yin practice, but sometimes I need really some asanga to do some opposite practices. So it's really depending on the day, also depending on the season. In summertime I need more yin. In wintertime I need more yang.
Yeah, to kind of balance those opposites.
Yes, but also in the beginning, some years ago, I had really a shena. And Monday I do yin, Tuesday I do vinyasa, but now I don't do it again because I think today sometimes I need yin. Okay, I need yin. Okay, let's do that. And then yes, sometimes even 1 hour after I need more yang. So it's completely, yes, it's for that reason it's a little bit hard to say this is my favorite. My body needs all the time something else. Maybe also connecting with what I'm eating, what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, and what about from that second part of the book? Any of the sadhana that he gave to try? Did you try any of those?
Yes, I tried, but yeah, the exercises sometimes they are so difficult to do. I tried the first, and also there's a connection with the meditation with the with the tree. That was a very very nice experience for me. I tried it with my students too. And that's to have also a little bit more connection with the environment, I think, because it's all the time it's a kind of connection. I breathe in and it's the energy from the tree, and I breathe out, and the tree take my energy. So that was really yeah, a nice experience. It's a little bit
Nice.
hard to explain it.
Anyone else have any favorite? Oh, sorry, hard to explain.
Yeah, I think my connection was not so good, but I was talking about the meditation with the tree.
Yes.
Tree meditation. So that's yeah, it was really special. For more, I did it every day, and then yes, everything looked a little bit different. More, I think I had more connection with the trees and the everything around me. I was more connected with the yeah with nature, I think.
Mm.
But it's a little bit hard to explain in words what was I feeling. Something is changing deep down.
Tanya says, in general, Hatha yoga is more difficult. She is more of a yin person and tried the exercise with the tree. Oh, so the one where you sit next to the tree and you breathe in as if you're like breathing in with it. Yeah. As did you do it with the eyes open or the eyes closed? I think he says to do it with the eyes closed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done it both ways before, and the first time I ever did something like that was after reading another book years and years ago, and it was like, yeah, you really start to kind of feel that connection with nature. It's really powerful. Oh, you did it with your back to the tree. How nice.
No, I was in front of the tree.
Yeah. Oh no, Tanya, she's just writing in the chat. She did it with her back to the tree.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Anyone else?
I really like the second practice that he offered, although I have to admit I have not put it into full practice. And I'll just remind you what it said. He says, another way of listening to life is paying attention to it experientially, not intellectually or emotionally. Choose any one thing about yourself, your breath, your heartbeat, your pulse, your little finger. Just pay attention to it for 11 minutes at a time. Do this at least 3 times a day. And he basically goes on to say, keep bringing your attention back to whatever it is that you chose to focus on. He says this practice will allow you to move from mental alertness to awareness. You will find the quality of your life experience will begin to change. So I'm curious to try this one. I feel like I almost need to set a timer on my phone 3 times a day for me to take that pause. To mindfully, to intentionally, take that 11-minute pause and practice this. I'm wondering, has anybody else tried this one?
Yeah, that's I've definitely not done it 3 times a day. I have done it, and it's hard at first. I actually like doing it with like a focal point, like a trataka, like something to gaze at. And I find it super, super interesting to do it with like a gaze, but I've definitely not done it 3 times a day for 11 minutes, but doing it even once a day is extremely interesting.
You feel like,
so sorry.
I was going to say, do you feel like it allowed you to move from mental alertness to awareness? And did you find it changed the quality of your life experience in general? I mean, it's meditation, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's just it. It's really just that beginning part of meditation. So I think that's kind of where he's hinting at with it, is that, you know, you just try this and it's only 11 minutes. And that's how I recommend to so many people in the beginning too. Like even 11 minutes is a long time. And I think that's such a big hurdle for people, is thinking that they have to just like, you know, erase their thoughts or try and get rid of their thoughts. And once you realize that that's not meditation, and that there's no specific one way, and you can really make so many different things meditation, that I think it becomes less of a you know, something that you have to do, or a challenging task, and more of just kind of a peaceful experience. And it can be, for sure. But I think that what I noticed the most with it was, especially because like if I do it with looking at something, for the first time I ever did it, and I think that's probably what I'll never forget, was with a shoe. And it was my teacher's shoe, actually. And he just took it off his foot and put it on the ground, and said, okay, now you're gonna look at this. But it was for 30 minutes. We had to look at his shoe. And I don't think I could ever look at his shoe, or you know, for the rest of the time I was with him, I never looked at his shoe the same again, because it was like so much focus for so long on that one shoe. And every single time like a thought went away, it was like, okay, no, bring it back to the shoe. And I wasn't, you know, we weren't supposed to like comment or have any like inner dialogue about the color or the shape, or, you know, all of the stuff that you normally do. It was like, just be aware of it. And then afterwards, yeah, it's kind of like you just have so much, or at least I had so much more appreciation for things that might otherwise have been insignificant before. And just looking at the more like smaller details and little nuances of things.
And what is the significance of the 11 minutes? Is there any?
I have no idea if it is if he has it for that. I've heard 11 minutes before. I know with transcendental meditation, they do 21 minutes, because they say that the first minute is usually like settling in and you're not really there, so then you have like 20 solid minutes. So I'm wondering if that's why he does the same thing, because your first minute is kind of just like, you know, kind of clearing out all the garbage and that, and so it's like 10 solid minutes. I'm not sure. I don't think he said it. I didn't read any reasoning or come across any reasoning as to why. Anyone else? Any favorite sadhanas or practices, either from the book or outside of the book? I guess we can, any ones that weren't mentioned. He did talk about a lot, even though he didn't maybe necessarily say like what the names of them you might know from other practices, but he did mention a lot of them. So I actually just started a practice, and this goes back to kind of like in the body section. I liked that he talked about food, and like kind of how food is fuel for our body, and having that awareness about what we're putting into our bodies and how that affects us. And so I started having a little ritual every time that I eat, that I kind of make that part of my practice as well. Just because I think that, like, at least me personally, in the past, it's like I would kind of unconsciously eat, and just, you know, eat because you have to, or eat because you're hungry, and not really put a lot of thought into it. And so I started a practice that every time before I eat, I will like think about, and I do stuff with my hands, but I just because it like helps me stop to do it. But I think about all the people who have contributed to the food that I'm about to eat. I think about like all of the farmers who picked the fruits, and I think about the people who have like made the hummus that I'm about to eat, and all of their energy and what they've gone through, and specifically the prana, the positive prana energy that they've put into it, and how that then gets transferred into me. So yeah, that's something that I started just over a year ago now, I think. And it's really been a very nice practice to implement, I think. At least I enjoy it, and I've stuck to it. So yeah, something that I do. Not I didn't. He did talk about the food, doing something with food, but it wasn't exactly my practice, but it was similar. Anyone else? Any practices that they do regularly, or ones that they like that they've done before that they want to share?
You mean any practices that helps
Yeah.
to bring more awareness, or because there is so many practices?
Yeah, but we can't do them all, right?
Yeah, we cannot, definitely. That's
So
very true, and I think that's the thing, is like we have to choose.
yeah, so what's one of your favorite practices?
Well, my favorite practice is actually Nauli Kriya. That's my favorite, and my teacher, one of my teacher, Grigor Mahel, in an intensive that we just finished a few weeks ago, said that if he could only do if someone was telling him that now it's only possible to do 5 minutes of yoga, he will only do Nali. And Grigor Mahel has been practicing since, like, I don't know, more than 40 years for sure, and teaching for 30. And it's very interesting to have some people with so much experience that have been going through different stages of life and different also stages of practices, that says that actually what they will do in 5 minutes is only Nali. Yeah.
So what do you, maybe you could explain, because I'm not sure that everybody will know what Nali Kriya is. Maybe you could explain, and then let me know why you like it so much.
Yeah. So Nali Kriya is a Kriya, so it's a cleansing technique. And there is many different cleansing technique, and they all refer either to the digestive system or the breathing system, or a lot of different things that you want to cleanse from toxin, or it can be from pollution, things like that, that can be helpful then to tune inward more easily for the rest of your practices. So that's why kriyas are usually one of the first thing that we do before other practices. And so yeah, why do I like? And so Nali Kriya is actually like a suction of the abdominal. So you make a vacuum with your abdominal, and you do like the weird movement of like flapping or some rolls, whatever you can do. And there is more traditional way of doing it, but let's say it like that. And I really like it because it's short, first of all. So I know it's very simple to commit to it. And I have to do it before I do anything else, because you can't drink a coffee or do anything, really like get anything. And I like it because for me it's really showing how we can do so much. For me, we can do so much more than what we expect. And when I saw these people doing weird stuff with their belly, I've never thought that actually one day I will find that it's like automatism from my belly to do that now. And well, because I have also IBS, and for me, if I don't do now, I really have it badly. So that's my way of dealing with that.
How long did it take you to be able to perfect it?
I will say I don't really remember, but for sure not more than 3 months. But I was already like aware of my body. So I think it really depends how much awareness you have first about isolating muscles, you know, like creating these pathways between the muscle that you want to contract and your brain. So yeah.
Interesting. So you would choose that over like even 5 minutes of meditation?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because 5 minutes of meditation for me is nothing. Just the time to just sit and be, you know, settling in is 5 minutes. Then now is I'm straight in it. Like this suction of like this breath retention is really is yeah, it's really different. I would say Nali for sure.
Me and Nowly have a love-hate relationship. The retention, oh my gosh, it makes me sweat. And afterwards, I'm just like, I feel like it brings up my energy so much. Like
It
afterwards,
is.
yeah. Like after I do it, I'm just like sweating and hot, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I just ran a marathon, and I can hold my breath for way longer than that. But all of a sudden, I do Nally, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, classic.
Why? Why is that?
Yeah, because like, well, because we do the suction on our third chakra also, and so it does bring so much heat in our body. And it's why Nali also is so good for digestion, because it helps bring the fire in our digestive system, because it also massages, but just in our body. That's also why we feel like so hot if we do like 3 to 5 or more rounds of Nali. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Well, not that I can't, but I do 3, and I'm just like, okay, it's time for pranayama now. Get this done with. Anything else to share? We're getting close to 1 hour. If anybody has anything else, any questions from the book or anything they wanted to bring up? No? All right. Well, if you think of anything afterwards. Did you have something, Angie? Sorry?
No, I was looking. I made some
Okay.
notes, but I have nothing to add. No.
Yeah. It was I really liked the book. I always, when I look at books, I always think of like when somebody asked me for a book recommendation, and actually this was the quote at the end, or the quote that I wrote. It wasn't at the end of the book, but the quote that I wrote at the end of the post was about like to find someone who's capable of receiving what you know is not easy. And I feel like that as like a yoga teacher, or even as somebody sharing this knowledge, that can be one of the most difficult parts for us, because you probably have a lot of information and you want to share it, but the person, as we spoke of earlier, they have to be ready to receive it, just like when you're reading a book, you have to be ready to receive it. So I think that is a very underrated as far as its difficulty to be able to share information with people who are ready to hear, because definitely not everybody is going to be in the same level of receptivity for information. And I feel that way with books in general, for people. So what type of person, or what kind of level of a journey do you think that this book would be suitable for? Like a brand new person to yoga, or maybe with a little bit more experience?
Maybe brand new. Easier,
Yeah.
I think. Yes, I think so, because a brand new student is open for all. There's some openness. When it's not a new student, he or she has already some expectations.
True. Yeah. I think perhaps it's more dependent, or it could be more dependent on the person as well. You might have a student who's really open to receiving first thing, and then you might have somebody who's the opposite. Tanya, you gave to a person, you gave the book to somebody who was brand new to yoga? Gave to a person brand new to yoga?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And did they read it yet?
Sorry.
Oh no, sorry. Tanya's writing in the chat. So I just asked her. She gave the book to somebody who's brand new to yoga and they're halfway through it. Well, I'd be very interested to see or hear their thoughts on it. You needed it back for today. Yeah. Well, good thing she or he gave it back to you. Yeah, I'd be very interested to see, because I'm always looking to give recommendations, and sometimes I do question whether, you know, something of this depth is good for everybody, or if it's more, you know, if there's some other kind of like gateway books that you can get people on this path of exploring spirituality and awareness and consciousness and all the lovely parts of the path. So I would be very interested to hear that, Tanya. All right, well, if there's nothing else, then the next book, if you're keen to join, is going to be Breath by James Nestor, which is really fascinating book. I like how it kind of gives the more scientific ideas and experiments and history around breathing that isn't talked about even by doctors. Like, so many doctors, there's very little explanation about like how we should be breathing, and so many people are walking around breathing incorrectly. And this book gave me such an awareness of, like, I already thought that I was a decent breather, and then I started reading this book, and he talks a lot about breathing through your nose versus your mouth, and like I really tried to stop ever breathing through my mouth, because when you read the experiment that he did, it's really fascinating. So that will be next book, and we will do it, I guess, in June, because it's already almost June. Crazy. So if you have any troubles getting the book, or if you have any questions about it, just write it in the Facebook group. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining. And yes, thanks, Michelle. She says, thank you for recommending this book. I enjoyed these discussions as well. So we'll see how many people get into the next book, and then decide on timing for that. But we'll look at a month from now. So it'll be towards probably the end of June. And then I might take a little bit of a summer break for people, so we'll see how it goes. If people want to do June and then maybe into early August, to see how much time it goes. But just keep an eye on the group, and I'll post the dates. Okay, thank you so much. Looking forward to the next meeting. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
My pleasure. Bye.
Bye-bye.